Welcome to the Colorado Real Estate Leaders Podcast, brought to you by Trailstone Insurance Group, bringing you interviews with Colorado's best real estate and mortgage professionals, empowering you to understand the current trends in the housing market so you can make the American dream your reality. Enjoy today's episode.
Well, it's a great day in Colorado, and welcome to the Colorado Real Estate Leaders Podcast. Today we have with us Bryce Waite, who's a branch manager with Source Mortgage Group. Bryce, welcome to the program.
Thanks, buddy. Appreciate you having me.
You're welcome. So tell us a little bit about yourself. What's your background? How'd you get into the mortgage industry in the first place?
Well, I met a guy here in town. His name was Eric Colby, and he said he'd be a good fit for mortgages, and kind of blew my mind. And 30 days later, I'm taking the test and wound up in the industry.
That's interesting. Somebody saw something in you, and you were at a point in your life that you're like, okay, well, maybe that is a direction, and boom, you took action.
Let's go for it. Yep, exactly what I did.
What was it? Did he ever tell you what was it that he saw, or was it he was just going, come on board and let's just mold you?
Man, I think he said I talked a lot. You know,
That's awesome. Well, a lot of times that is a really good thing because you talk and educate and teach and relate to people.
Correct. Yep, for sure. It's been a blessing.
Perfect. And then how long have you been in the industry?
You know, it's been about 5 years going on. This be 6 years, going on 6 years now, but 5 solid years.
Awesome.
Yep.
And you typically are working with what type of borrowers? Are you finding that people are looking to refinance more often, or are you working with first-time home buyers? What is your sweet spot?
You know, I'd say the first-time home buyer is my sweet spot. It's well-rounded, but I'd probably 60, 70% of the business is first-time home buyers for sure.
Interesting. Because the Colorado market tends to be a hard market to break into given the price point. So do you find some of your first-time home buyers a little cautious or reticent, and then now you're having to really help them to see what they can afford and really work with them and hold their hand through that? What are some of the challenges that they are feeling?
Yeah, with the market and the prices the way they are, of course, we know it's hard to afford a home anymore. But you're seeing a lot more, couples, friends getting together and buying homes. You're seeing more families combined to buy a home instead of just an individual or just a newly married couple. So that's something I'm seeing that's a big change. That we're starting to see the rent increases going up, crazy again, and they just keep going up. Which people are realizing that. So the first time home buyers are kind of coming together and starting to realize, maybe we should buy together, and that's something new that I'm seeing.
That's really curious.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I wouldn't have thought of that. Like maybe they're going to buy a duplex and one couple live in one side, one friend live in the other, and things like that. So are they typically buying single family residence, or do you see them buying multifamily and living in different sides and even renting out one unit?
No, what I'm seeing more of is buying single family residences and then renting a room out or making a deal. So it's like an investment.
Okay.
More as a standpoint. At the current time, the younger crowd, right? That first time home buyers, early 30s, late 20s.
And then when they're doing that, are all of the parties on the loan and qualifying together, or is one party typically buying it and then they just know that their friend is going to be there to help with the mortgage payment?
Depending if they qualify. So it's into the situation where one wants it, but we can't qualify because of the market and the pricing. Right. So we add anyone else who's going to be there with income and credit that can help qualify. And that's what we're running into more and more. For example, today we had 5 people qualify for one house to make it work.
Wow.
Correct.
Now, is that to me, that sounds unique, but is that unique in underwriting where are there certain qualifications where an underwriter goes, come on, there's a limit here, 5 people and they're not related, they're not family members? That sounds like a really neat opportunity that you're able to offer to your borrowers. But what are some of those parameters when structuring it for the underwriter?
Yeah, as long as it's a primary residence, if you're using the bond programs for first-time home buyers to get grants and things that the state will allow you to have. But it's pretty much a letter of explanation showing that it's going to be your primary residence and this is going to be where we're going to live and we're all living here. And there's no argument you can do with that. That's just the way it is.
That's really creative considering how the market's been the last few years and all. That's awesome. Yep. So you're probably making a pretty good name for your team in that niche then, right?
Correct. And I mean, the rates are the same as the par rates in this market, where we're in a high rate environment. And you can get into a house in this market for $1,000 out of pocket. We're doing it weekly. I mean, it's happening all the time right now. So it's a big benefit.
Wow.
That kind of amplifies the word of mouth referral aspect, right? When you get 2, 3, 4, friends or couples together buying this house, all of a sudden they're talking to their friends and talking to their friends, going, "We're buying a house and we're gonna rent out this and we're helping out." And now they're like, "I want to do the same." And who's helping you put that together? And it kind of becomes that coffee table talk or conversation on the weekend. Like, here's what we're doing in our life, and I would venture to say that becomes a really great way that you guys are benefiting by word of mouth.
Hugely. I mean, that's the biggest thing, especially when they say, your deposit, you can get a house for less than your deposit for your first and last month's rent on a house. That's the crazy part.
Yeah.
And are you doing that with sellers paying closing costs, or like you said, some of the bond type programs, or is it a combination of that?
It's definitely a combination. And of course, the stars have to align right to be in that situation. But in the current market for the last, I would say 3 months that we've been in, and I think in the continuing 12 months we're going to be in, I believe, I don't have a crystal ball, but I believe that the seller paying for closing costs is going to be very common, and it has been recently, and I think it will continue for sure.
Yeah, because whatever the closing cost might be, whatever that dollar figure is, it might be more beneficial for the buyer to say, please pay the closing cost rather than reduce the purchase price by X, because then they still have to come up with the closing cost. So that becomes a huge benefit for the buyer. But if that's going to be the way that the deal closes, the seller probably is going to be very open to that.
Yeah, it's very, very beneficial for all parties. I mean, the seller can look at it how they want, but it really is beneficial for a smoother closing. It helps people have more cash, so we're not looking at foreclosure rates. It leaves a reserve in the bank. There's just many, many benefits to the sellers paying those closing costs in this market.
So talk a little bit about Team Bryce. I know that, when someone feels like I'm the chief cook and bottle washer and doing it all start to finish, some things can fall through the cracks. But if you've got a team behind you, that brings a whole lot of power to your borrowers.
Well, 100%. I don't think you can be in the business and do what's needed and give the service that's needed without a team. I truly, truly believe that. I started out, more as an individual, and I dropped the ball, fumbled the ball. Definitely wasn't going to the Super Bowl, right? Just wasn't going to. Once I built a team and you get a culture, and you start, you stop all the stuff that goes through the cracks. It's a game changer. You get way more 5-star reviews, and like that referral around the coffee table about the process and system and how smooth it went and the communication. It's a game changer. It just turns your business a total 180 degree to go uphill.
So do you find that your team takes kind of like ownership in their, it's almost like being an entrepreneur. I started a business, but being an intrapreneur, someone on your team can be entrepreneurial, but yet take ownership and go, okay, I'm going to run with this to make sure our borrowers are fully informed about this, or, talk a little bit about some of the ways that your team is serving your clients.
Yeah. So when we do a handoff, it's clear and communicated through our clients, right? We don't just no random call of, a processor, someone buying a home, next person calls and they don't know who's calling them. We do a very smooth handoff. We communicate it correctly. Coming from that, it's like running with the baton in track, right? Once it's handed off, you take it, you own it. There's no pointing fingers. So we drive it down the field. We don't bring it back. If you bring it back, there better be a reason, because I don't want the call and the client wants to know what's going on. That's kind of the model we try to run with.
Yeah, that's a huge, huge point. Because you know what? You mentioned, we want to get 5-star reviews. That's wonderful. But sometimes our human nature is, if we're going to go, let's say, to a restaurant and we see all these great reviews, you see one dinger of a review and it's like, oh, we're not going to go there. Why? There were 38 great ones or 112 great ones. So human nature is we tend to hear one little negative. So boy, everybody on your team has to be on point so that the experience is really consistent and uniform across, the whole process.
Well, and I think the biggest part of that too is the ownership of when you do mess up. I think that a lot of people in the industry, you got to, and it's just in general in the public as well. When you mess up, you got to call and say sorry. You got to take ownership. And a lot of people point fingers in the culture and the team that I'm trying to build here. You are not allowed to point fingers. You own it. If that makes sense.
I love that personal responsibility and ownership of the client when they're handed off.
Mm-hmm.
You don't see that a lot of times. And it sounds like you really systematized that and made that the culture. I love it.
Yeah, I don't think there's any other way. I think I've failed every other direction but that direction.
Me too. Right.
But if you are acknowledging that, and you realize that that becomes something that you're held accountable for, it keeps us all aware of constant and never-ending improvement.
Correct. And if you don't have that mindset, then you don't fit in the culture, which means you don't get a job here. You don't get to help the families we help.
Yeah.
And then you stagnate because it's like, okay, I'm just doing the same thing next. Here's your thing next. Here's your thing next. But if you are always bettering yourself and listening to learn, because it's not you win or you lose, it's you win or you learn. And if you had that hiccup, take that ownership and then have a quick powwow with the team and go, okay, how can we prevent this from ever happening again? Oh, here's what had happened. So if we could just change this in the process, boom. And then now you're moving on. So I think that kind of thing and that mentality and that vibe goes to the right now that I'm seeing just almost 100 Google 5-star reviews, which is spectacular. You earn that. You earn that kind of reputation, and that's really admirable.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I feel like I pay him sometimes.
which we know is not possible because Google doesn't play that game. We know that's definitely not the case. So talk a little bit about what when you are looking to grow your team. When you said this isn't allowed on our team, what are some of the things that are the non-negotiables that you are looking for when you are bringing new people onto the team, which then serves the borrowers that you are working with?
Yeah, I mean. Honestly, you got to have a lot of energy. You got to have the energy. You got to get people excited, right? There's too much negative stuff. Like you're talking about that 1-star, people not wanting to go. It's the same concept in every aspect. I think that, and you're talking to a client, you have to come in strong with energy. You have to make them feel that they're making the right choice when they make them feel comfortable in their decision. And I just think the energy is key. Second is accountability, right? Of being honest, right? Take ownership, as we talked about. Those are my biggest things. I don't care about where you worked or what you did the last 20 years. We have to adapt. Things change. But the culture of a true team, I use the football analogy. I want to go to the Super Bowl, right? And you can't do that with just one quarterback. You can't do that with one wide receiver. It takes a full team. You got to have the line. You got to have everything. So we need that culture to all have each other's back. And a lot of energy to help each other get there and help these clients feel comfortable and get their families into homes.
And so that team, I would suspect, is your internal team, but also you as a mortgage lender have an external team, right? So talk a little bit about some of the ways that you bring people together to help your clients achieve success. Like, oh, well, if you need, home inspection, I've got this. Oh, I've got realtors that I serve, and I've got, if you need a financial planner. So what are some of those external strategic alliances that you bring to the equation that really help serve your clients?
Yeah, I mean that's a great question there. Coming at that, there's so many moving parts, right? From insurance to you got inspectors, you got the agent, you got title. There's so many moving parts, and you want to build a solid team, right? To pass it through, like we were just talking about. It's really just test and trial to figure out who's good fit, who's not, right? And anytime I refer anyone anymore, just because everything's going on, is, I try to say, if you run into a problem or something doesn't feel right, please give me a call back, because I am not that person. I'm referring because it's quite good so far. And that's something I've been doing for about the last, I'd say year and a half. And it's really protected me from contractors and other things of the nature as well.
Sure does. Yeah.
There's nothing worse if we talked about 5-star reviews, which another R word is reputation, your personal reputation, the Bryce Waite reputation, the team Bryce reputation. Boy, that can get tarnished in a hurry if it's that referral to that one vendor who didn't do a good job. So that's really smart to say, hey, listen, you're my client. I am taking care of you. I am protective of you. So if you are not treated right, I want the very first call to be immediately to be me, because I'm either going to step in and fix it or get this person off of my referral team. So I think that is really huge, and that shows then your clients that you care and that you're going to take action on their behalf.
Correct. And like I tell the clients day one when I meet them and closing, whenever, we're committed to them. We're committed to them and their family. It's a true commitment to make sure things go smooth, but we can't guarantee everything because it's not in our control. There's a lot of third-party vendors. But if we all work together and communicate, we will get a good, end result.
And it all really does tie into communication, because sometimes it's like, man, what's going on with my deal? And how come the realtor didn't tell me this? How come the inspector hasn't? It's all of the communication. So do you have some good systems in place that you proactively make sure that your borrowers, your clients are being communicated with so that they know where they stand?
Oh man, I'm annoying. All right. That's the way to put it is, we have one rule that we keep here. We touch client, touch partner. Okay. So every time we talk to that client, the agent's updated right away. That's the number one rule I've implemented here. It's changed everything. Okay. So the same concept goes with closing docs, title company, right? And I know a lot of people probably don't know what all this means, but there's just a lot of moving parts and everyone needs to be on the same page. That's what it means. And when I implemented that rule, it changed the whole branch model. And it just made everything really good. And if a client doesn't answer me, in 48 hours, your phone's going to be ringing, and it doesn't stop until you answer. That's our model.
That's huge. And I think that you might have said tongue in cheek annoying, but boy, if a realtor and a borrower is hearing from the mortgage lender at every move and every important juncture, there is no way that's annoying, because the alternative is like, hello, where's my stuff? Where am I standing? So I think that is well received. And boy, that it does become a competitive advantage, because a lot of people in the industry don't do that.
No, they don't. And it's not saying that they're horrible or whatnot. It's just they don't know. You have to, as soon as you touch somebody, you have to touch the next person. It's just communication, like you said. It's the most important piece.
Well, Bryce, I think that it sounds like you guys have it dialed in, but you're not resting on your laurels and going, we've got it figured out. So cool. Nothing. We don't need to do anything else. It's that process that you are listening and learning and waiting to polish up. So I just think that has that vibe is so powerful. If someone is listening going, hey, let me check out what you guys can do for me, whether it's a real estate partner or a borrower, what's the best way that they can learn more about your team and reach out and connect with you?
If you Google Bryce Waite, that'd be the best way. There's a phone number on there, email, and a good way to get a hold of me through there.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on. It's a real pleasure talking with you today.
Thanks, guys. Very much appreciated.
Thank you for listening to the Colorado Real Estate Leaders Podcast, brought to you by Trailstone Insurance Group. To learn more about the topics mentioned on today's show or listen to past episodes, visit www.coloradorealestateleaders.com.